What was meant to be a relaxing escape for 29-year-old Zaliya Shamigulova quickly turned into a horror show straight out of a nightmare. The young Russian university lecturer had flown to the remote African island of Mauritius, a place celebrated for its crystal-clear waters and serene beaches. Little did she know that beneath this idyllic paradise, a dark and twisted fate awaited her. Zaliya decided to use Tinder during her vacation, hoping to meet someone interesting. It seemed like a harmless choice at the time, a simple swipe on a screen. But that innocent decision led her into the hands of a sinister plot. The island, once a symbol of tranquility, became the stage for a gruesome series of events: betrayal, violence, and ultimately murder. What started as a dream vacation turned into a chilling nightmare, leaving a trail of blood and terror that no one could have imagined. To find out more about it, let's start with the details. Zaliya Shamigulova's Tinder journey started like any other, with a casual connection. She swiped right on Puryavirsingh Sundur, a 29-year-old IT engineer native to the island. The details of their initial contact are murky. Some reports suggest they had communicated before Zaliya's arrival, while others indicate they only connected once she reached the island. Nevertheless, they matched on Tinder, and their conversations quickly transitioned from online chat to plans for an in-person meeting. August 17th was a day like any other on the island, sun-soaked and brimming with the promise of adventure. Zaliya, dressed in a white and blue dress, left her rental apartment that afternoon, ready to explore the island further. She was seen stepping into a blue Toyota, the same car that belonged to Sundur, who had offered her a ride. To anyone watching, it appeared to be a friendly gesture, a local helping a tourist experience the island's hidden gems. But as the car pulled away from the curb, a chill settled in the air, unnoticed by the bustling streets around them. The hours that followed were a blur of uncertainty. When Zaliya didn't return to her apartment that evening, concern started to grow. Calls went unanswered, and messages remained unseen. Friends and family, initially dismissive of their unease, soon found their worry turning into fear as the night deepened with no word from Zaliya. The island's picturesque beauty now masked an undercurrent of dread. As the days passed, Zaliya's absence became more conspicuous, and the blue Toyota, once a symbol of a friendly connection, now carried the weight of ominous implications. What began as a vacation adventure had spiraled into a mystery, with every passing moment steeped in the unknown. Puryavirsingh Sundur, the last person to see Zaliya, had gone from a mere Tinder match to the key figure in a case that gripped the island. The question on everyone's lips: what happened after that car door closed behind her? When Zaliya Shamigulova didn't return to her rental apartment that evening, her friend, who was vacationing with her, grew concerned. She waited, hoping it was just a delay, or maybe a spur-of-the-moment decision to explore more of the city. But as the hours ticked by, unease turned into dread. Something didn't feel right. Zaliya was always prompt and a stickler for plans. This wasn't like her at all. The friend, trembling with worry, finally reported her missing, hoping against hope that it was just a misunderstanding. Meanwhile, back in Russia, Zaliya's family started receiving strange, unsettling messages from her phone. The messages were brief, almost cold, claiming that Zaliya had decided to go off the grid and that she no longer wished to be in contact with them. The words were a far cry from the Zaliya they knew: warm, connected, always eager to share her latest travel adventures on social media. Her absence from the digital world was the first red flag. The tone of these messages was the second. Her family knew her better than anyone. They knew that Zaliya was the last person who would disappear without a trace or explanation. She was close to her family, constantly sharing her experiences, her joys, and her challenges. The idea that she would abruptly cut off all communication was unthinkable. The sudden silence on her once active social media accounts only deepened their fears. The messages weren't just odd, they were wrong. A glaring inconsistency in the person they knew and loved. The growing fear gnawed at her friends and family. They couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened, that these messages were not from Zaliya at all. They tried calling her, but the phone rang endlessly, unanswered. The texts kept coming, though, insisting that Zaliya was fine and that she had decided to disconnect from everyone. But each message only heightened their anxiety. The words felt empty, like they were trying to cover up a dark truth. As the investigation unfolded, their worst fears began to take shape. The authorities, initially considering the possibility that Zaliya might have just wanted some space, started piecing together a more sinister story. The details that emerged were chilling. The friend, who had stayed behind at the rental apartment, was questioned extensively. Every word, every clue was scrutinized, but the answers were elusive, wrapped in a thick fog of mystery. Zaliya's disappearance was no simple case of wanderlust gone wrong. The messages, the silence, the growing sense of dread, all pointed to a darker, more terrifying possibility. Something had happened to Zaliya Shamigulova, and whatever it was far from the innocent explanations her phone suggested. Local law enforcement quickly focused on Zaliya Shamigulova's Tinder date, Puryavirsingh Sundur, as a person of interest. The night of Zaliya's disappearance had been a normal one until she met Sundur, a man who, on the surface, seemed charming and kind. But as the investigation unraveled, so did the chilling truth about his dark side. When detectives first approached Sundur, he appeared calm, almost too calm. His alibi was shaky, and the timeline of events didn't quite add up. Suspicion began to grow, and it wasn't long before the pressure of the investigation started to weigh heavily on him. After hours of relentless questioning, Sundur's composed demeanor crumbled. His eyes, once cold and calculating, revealed a hint of fear as he began to crack under the weight of his lies. What Sundur revealed next was a horrifying twist that no one saw coming. He admitted to being involved in Zaliya's disappearance, and as the words left his mouth, the room fell into an eerie silence. The detectives could barely believe what they were hearing. Sundur confessed not only to her abduction, but also to her murder, his voice a mixture of regret and something far more sinister, an underlying satisfaction that sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. But the confession was just the beginning. The investigators knew they needed more than just his words. As they delved deeper into the case, they uncovered critical evidence that tied Sundur directly to the crime. Bloodstains, faint but undeniable, were discovered in the trunk of his car, each droplet telling a story of violence and betrayal. This discovery sealed his fate, painting a gruesome picture of what had happened on that fateful night. Following this damning evidence, Sundur led the authorities to a remote area of the island known as La Marie. The journey there was tense, the air thick with anticipation and dread. La Marie, an isolated spot, just a 25-minute drive from where Zaliya and her friend had been staying, was the last place anyone expected to find her. As the investigators approached the area Sundur had indicated, a feeling of unease settled over them. The land was quiet, almost too quiet, as if it held its breath in anticipation of the horrors it concealed. It was here, in a shallow grave hastily dug into the unforgiving earth, that they discovered Zaliya's lifeless body. The sight was a tragic end to a life full of promise, a silent testament to the evil that had cut it short. The scene that greeted the investigators was nothing short of a nightmare. Zaliya Shamigulova lay naked on the cold, unforgiving ground, her body marred by multiple stab wounds. The most chilling detail, however, was her severed tongue, a cruel act meant to silence her screams forever. This gruesome discovery shocked even the most hardened law enforcement officers who had seen their share of horror, but nothing quite like this. Puryavirsingh Sundur, the man responsible for this heinous crime, was quickly apprehended. His confession was as disturbing as the crime itself. Sundur claimed that jealousy had driven him to commit this unspeakable act. In his twisted mind, he believed that Zaliya had been unfaithful to him, suspecting her of showing interest in another man. This perceived betrayal consumed him, twisting his thoughts into a dark, vengeful spiral. He told detectives how he had meticulously planned the murder, luring Zaliya under the guise of a romantic outing. She had trusted him, never suspecting the danger that lurked behind his calm facade. Sundur led her to an isolated spot, far from the prying eyes of the world, where he could carry out his sinister plan undisturbed. Once there, Sundur attacked her with a knife, the blade flashing in the dim light as he repeatedly stabbed her. The violence was shocking, driven by a rage that had festered for too long. As Zaliya fought for her life, he silenced her cries by cutting out her tongue, a brutal act that added a final, horrifying layer to the crime. Sundur's confession was chilling in its calmness. He spoke of the murder with a detached air, as if he were describing something mundane rather than a brutal slaying. To him, it seemed, the act was justified, a twisted form of retribution for what he perceived as a betrayal. He felt no remorse, only a grim satisfaction that he had carried out his plan to the end. As the detectives listened to Sundur's account, they couldn't help but feel a deep sense of unease. This was not just a crime of passion, it was something far darker, a glimpse into the mind of a man who had crossed the line between love and obsession. Sundur had allowed his jealousy to consume him, transforming his affection into something monstrous. The investigation would continue, the search for answers far from over. But one thing was certain. This crime had left an indelible mark on everyone involved. The brutality of the act and the coldness of Sundur's confession would haunt them for a long time to come. The case of Zaliya Shamigulova's raises many unsettling questions about the mindset of her killer. Was this a crime of sudden rage, born out of perceived betrayal, or was it the calculated act of a predator who had meticulously planned every step to lure and murder his victim? Criminologists often dissect such cases by studying both the victim and the perpetrator. The victimology, or examination of Zaliya's behaviors and actions leading up to her death, provides crucial insights into how she might have unknowingly increased her risk. Meeting someone online, especially in a foreign country, introduces an element of danger that differs significantly from traditional methods of meeting people through mutual acquaintances or familiar social circles. On the other hand, the suspectology, or analysis of Puryavirsingh Sundur's past behaviors and psychological profile, is equally vital in understanding his motives. Did a sudden, uncontrollable rage truly drive Sundur due to Zaliya's supposed betrayal? Or does his past reveal a pattern of predatory behavior that culminated in this horrific act? The meticulous way in which he mutilated Zaliya's body hints at a level of depravity that might not align with a crime of passion. It suggests something far more sinister, a deliberate desire to inflict pain and suffering. As investigators delve deeper into Zaliya and Sundur's backgrounds, they hope to uncover the truth behind this shocking crime. Was Zaliya simply in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or did Sundur carefully select her as his next victim? The answers lie hidden in the shadows of their pasts, waiting to be uncovered, piece by piece, in a puzzle that paints a disturbing picture of the human psyche. The strange messages sent from Zaliya Shamigulova's phone to her family in Russia were one of the earliest signs that something was terribly wrong. Investigators are familiar with cases where perpetrators seize control of a victim's phone, using it to send deceptive messages to throw off suspicion or buy precious time. These messages, often unnervingly out of character, can offer vital insights into the unfolding situation. In Zaliya's case, the sudden shift in her communication style set off alarm bells. Her family, deeply familiar with her habits and unique way of expressing herself, immediately sensed that something was amiss. Zaliya was a meticulous communicator, and the abrupt, uncharacteristic tone in these texts was a glaring anomaly. It was as if someone else had taken over, someone who didn't truly understand her. The divergence from her typical behavior was likely the first undeniable clue that Zaliya was no longer in control of her own story. As her loved ones read the unsettling words, the realization dawned that these were not Zaliya's thoughts, but the calculated efforts of someone trying to cover their tracks. With each message, a chilling picture began to form. One where Zaliya was being silenced, her voice twisted by another's intent. The more the texts piled up, the clearer it became that this wasn't just a misunderstanding. Something darker was at play, and the false sense of normalcy those messages tried to project only deepened the mystery. The investigation was no longer just about finding Zaliya. It was about unraveling the sinister force that had taken hold of her life. Each text, each word, was a breadcrumb in a trail leading them to a truth too horrifying to ignore. Technology, particularly dating apps like Tinder, plays a significant role in modern relationships, but it also introduces new risks. While these platforms can connect people across vast distances, they also open doors to potential dangers, especially when individuals travel to unfamiliar locations to meet strangers. In Zaliya's case, her use of Tinder to connect with Sundar seemed harmless at the time. However, it ultimately led to her tragic demise. This raises important questions about the responsibility of such platforms in ensuring user safety, especially when users are in vulnerable situations, such as being alone in a foreign country. Zaliya's story serves as a stark reminder of the importance of personal safety, particularly when traveling. There are several precautions that travelers, especially those traveling alone, can take to reduce risks when meeting new people in unfamiliar environments. First, it's crucial to maintain regular contact with friends or family members, updating them about your whereabouts and plans. Sharing your location with trustworthy people via smartphone applications may increase security. Additionally, meeting new people in public places and avoiding isolated areas can help mitigate the risk of falling into dangerous situations. Zaliya's tragic experience underscores the need for heightened awareness and caution when engaging with new acquaintances, especially in a foreign country where cultural and language barriers might complicate the ability to seek help. This is all about the painful story of Zaliya. This shows how sick and drastic mentality that person pursuing all the time, and how tragically Zaliya's love search ended up to her brutal murder. So what do you suggest on the implications against such sexual harassments? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section. So for more interesting criminal stories, hit the subscribe button to our channel, like and share the video, and I'll see you on the other side.